Okay, this is our normal workshops we run on Saturdays. My name is Charles Sina. I'm the CEO of Advanced Research Center, which is a clinical office upstairs where we do clinical research, and also for Anti-Fragility Health, which is the clinic downstairs, and we also have a clinic in Vietnam. So today we're going to cover two subjects. Number one is our new equipment from Russia, as Simon calls it, our Putin equipment that measures your body scan. We're going to go through a sample report about that. Most people here must have taken it, except if you have a pacemaker or if you have metal inside of you, we will not allow you to be scanned on the machine because of the radio frequencies that the machine uses. So we're going to go through that report. That's number one. Number two, we're going to talk about our recommendation system for lifestyle. Some of you are patients, and so we're going to go through some of the changes that we are making in how we make recommendations for your lifestyle, and how we also support you in transforming your lifestyle. So there is a saying that I've been using recently, which is that being healthy is a revolutionary act. A lot of people have gotten used to a lifestyle and they get unhealthy and they're stubborn about that lifestyle. You know, people make comments like, that's how I am. Well, you can be that way and be unhealthy, or you can make changes and be healthy. And as we know the rules for being healthy. For example, right, you have to drink a certain amount of water every day.
How much?
About 10 glasses. The body needs that amount of water daily, or even more, depending on the season, right? When it's hot and humid, when I'm in Vietnam, I'm drinking more because the body needs more, because more of it is evaporating through the humidity. In winter, right, because it's cold outside, you can then manage that. But hydration is a really critical component of lifestyle. And most people don't drink enough water. So it's not even just about water. It's also about the quality of the water that you're drinking, right? That's why I don't encourage ice in restaurants anymore, because you need to just look at how many people dip their hands into the ice machine. How many people go to restaurants and take ice? Show hands. How many people take ice in restaurants? How many people have actually seen where that ice is coming from?
I know where it's coming from. A lot of equipment.
Sorry?
It comes from a lot of equipment. Ice machines go.
And how is ice taken out of that machine?
The scoop. There's a scoop.
With hands mostly. It's mostly hands.
I work at a restaurant. I use a scoop.
Well, that's where you worked. Most of the restaurants I've seen, the people just use their hand to scoop it. And so it's a lot of infection, and those machines are really not washed, just like our air conditioning. That's why a lot of us have Legionnaire's disease, right?
That's true. You should be worried about the machine more than the hand.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying, the accumulation of bacteria, because it's a wet area, especially the molding. If you look at the one, we have at our tennis club, we have an ice machine. And as an example, the other day, I opened it for us to look at the ice compartment, and you could see the molding. Nobody pays attention. So we get chronic illness from just little lifestyle things that we have assumed is fine, when we have not really checked why it is or whether it is. So molds, as we know, is one of the real hidden issues of sickness in the culture. One of the most dangerous places where we get molds is dried seeds. Because moving a seed from fresh to dry, I know most people didn't grow up in a village, so they don't really know how that process happens. It's a very delicate process of drying the seed without the seed molding because of the wetness that is around it. And so a lot of seeds that people eat, peanuts, almonds, come with a lot of mold because there was no really dried air process that ensured that there was no wetness during that drying process of the seeds. So we eat a lot of seeds, pistachios, and so we think we're healthy, but we're actually consuming a lot of mold. And mold, if you look at on biofilm, really, really very challenging to our overall health. So there are little things that we're doing, and most people will say they are healthy, but there are little things that they're not really paying attention to. So for example, here we have really good quality water. We filter, it's a double filtration. We have good air filter quality, it's very important, and those are just the kinds of things that we practice for lifestyle. So we're going to talk about the report, and then we will talk about some lifestyle issues. Okay? How many people here have run the LifeScan? Did you run it? All right. So Vincent, can you make sure that all their reports, I have it in the folder? Right? Can you put all the reports together? So we're going to go through a general report because I cannot discuss your reports openly with you. So overall, on the first page of the report, even on the machine, when you stand on the machine, it gives you an overall score of 396. That score is out of a total of 500. There are 4 areas. So from 0 to 180 is poor. From 180 to 365 is moderate. It's a very large range. And then from 365 to 420 is good, and then above that is excellent. And we're going to talk about the different areas where the machine does measurement. So can somebody help me scroll? No. Okay, thanks. All right, so it actually has a cumulated process of looking how many visits you've done and what was the measurement at your last visit and what is your measurement at this visit, because a lot of different things are going on and we're going to look at the different areas it measures. So one of the first areas it measures is body composition. We actually have another equipment for body composition. Kim, why is body composition a very important measurement?
When it tells you your BMI, it tells you your fat, your muscle, your water intake, your heart rate.
Yeah, so the body composition measurement, thanks Kim, is a collection of measures that looks at your musculoskeletal system. So it talks about 3 or 4 or 5 very important measures, as Kim was saying. Your lean mass, which is a very important measure of muscle. Your lean mass percentage is a very, very important. So for people who are menopausal or people who are above 50, one of the big challenges is the loss of muscle mass. And that is a very strong indication of impending chronic illness. The second thing is percentage of body fat. As we all know, you need to have some fat. But when it rises to a certain level, that underlying fat, whether it's brown fat, white fat, or gray fat, or visceral fat, are significant indicators of the beginning of chronic illness. Especially cancer loves fat. So any fat that is really not good fat, especially visceral fat, which is fat that is sitting around the organs, would be of a big problem, right? Let's look at microcirculation. That's really one of the, no, leave it, scroll down. We're going to look at in detail all of these other measures. Microcirculation is one of the big things that we measure, and we're beginning to provide a lot of treatment for our patients with regard to microcirculation. Microcirculation is the issue of peripheral vasculation. That is circulation in the legs and in the hands, in the peripheries. And it's a very, very important indication of whether your extremities are getting enough nutrients and whether the nerves are being fed appropriately with the circulatory architecture. So it's a circulation that carries nutrients and ensures that all parts of the body. And so typically, as we grow older, or people who have done chemotherapy will begin to experience tingling and numbness and cramps in the extremities. Those are beginning signs that there are microcirculatory issues that we have to deal with. Then there's the issue of the vertebrae, which is the backbone. Most of us have issues with that because of how we sit and the postures that we have. Or if you carry fat, it actually affects your posture. And so over time that becomes a problem. And then there's a cardio score, which will just look at the quality of the musculature around the heart itself and the pumping engines around that. We also do a stress score, and then we do a vascular age. So a vascular age is actually looking at your chronological age, or the age of your heart and the circulatory architecture, right? So I don't know what was the age of this person, but it's giving them a very good vascular age score, right? So when you get your reports,
Can we see the report?
Vincent, where are the reports?
Yeah, we need to see them.
Yes, it's all right. Where are the reports?
Yeah, I'm printing.
So for the people who are here, give them their reports. Who's that? That's Endan's report. And then that's Kim's report. So give them the reports so that at least they have context. Yes, I apologize. I thought you had them already. So for people who have them, it's confidential, so if you don't want to open them right now, yeah, they're going to get it to you. So, and don't worry, if you don't get it in time, I'll do a consult with you on it, okay? So you begin to look at your stress score, and then the visceral fat, which I was talking about, very important measurement. It's interesting because people think that if you look fat, that means that you have a high visceral fat score. But you know, in Asia, when we do it, even with a lot of Vietnamese, they look very slim, but they really have high visceral fat. And that's the more dangerous fat. The other fat is easy to lose. The visceral fat is the more challenging fat. And so scroll now. Let's begin to look at the reports in full. So we'll look at the first one. Then it also gives you some risks around your vertebrae, around your fluid balance, around microcirculation. Let's scroll quickly. All right. So it gives like, scroll. Okay, that's it. It gives you like a main indicator board, right, for your report that shows the different things that we're actually measuring. So if you notice, there are 10 measures that this machine is measuring. It's measuring your stress. Did you get a coupon for the body scan? All right, so why don't you scan him while he's here so that he'll get his report? You have a measure of stress. We talked about that. A measure of fatigue. I don't want to go into all the individual measures because that's in your report. There's a guide to each of those individual measures inside at the back of your report. Okay? So overall, let's look at recovery. The key issue about recovery, I play tennis every morning. So that is a big issue when we play tennis, is how quickly you recover from any strenuous exercise. So typically, when they take you to do a stress test, that's what they're looking. They stress you and they see the recovery. It's a very important measurement of resilience, right?
Question. What exactly is estimated DO2?
That's why I say it's in the detail of your report.
No, I mean
At the back. I have to look at it. I don't have all of that in my head. I think,
that's why I'm asking.
yeah, I don't know the details inside my head. I would have to look at your report. It's actually explained in detail at the back of the report, right? Let me quickly. But good question, Kim. I wish I know all the biomarkers by now. Okay. So we're looking at recovery, and it's the DO2. Okay, so that is the rate of oxygen transport in the arterial blood.
Wow.
It should be between 800 and 1200. That's the normal range. So that range here is 1570. Yeah, it's actually higher. No, this one is actually higher, but the normal range. So at the back of the report, there are these explanations of all the biomarkers, and they'll tell you the details at the back. It says explanation of physiological index. So you'll see all the details there. For example, I measure the SpO2 when I'm playing, which is the amount of oxygenation in my blood when I'm exercising. It should be around 95 to 100%. So typically, it's a little thing they clip in your finger when you get on the machine. You really need to measure how much oxygen is circulating in your blood. If it's below 95, it means that you're not getting enough. The cells are being punished. They're not getting enough oxygen. Okay, we're all following? Mm-hmm. All right. So, and then the VO2, I don't want to go, that's oxygen uptake. It should be between 200 and 300. So this particular person is doing very well in terms of their arterial performance. I think they're a sports person. As we know, that there are people who are both performance in vitality, and our measures of vitality is typically higher. For example, if you run marathons, your performance is above healthy. So we have classifications here, 4 classifications of health. There's vitality, there's healthy, there's distressed, and there's disorder. Disorder is when you've been diagnosed with a disease. Distress is 90% of the population. We all have some level of imbalance because of aging, because of toxicity. Just the matter of living itself causes a lot of distress. So we look at performance, right, which is really the level of activity and the amount of stress and the amount of total power that's in there. So let me look at what those specific measures actually talk about. So if we look at, it's classifying 1, minimum 5 on the physical activity level. So it should be above 3. Then it looks at your myocardial oxygen demand related to the cardiac function. That should be above 200, right? So for that person it should be max 200, it should be less than 200. Then it looks at the total power, that should be greater than 780. And it is the interval between the systole and the diastole measurements. It shows the total power, which is really the arterial power, right? That's why some people do better in sports than others. People who have trained at high altitude, their heart has better performance in really supplying oxygen to the muscular architecture, right? So arterial stiffness, which we know it's a big measure for cardiac performance. We have scans here that also look at the stenosis and the level of stiffness in the arterial architecture. So that arterial stiffness, it's a very important measurement, and it looks at what we call the SI. Where is that now? Sorry. It looks at a couple of those measures, which would be the systolic, I think, and then the diastolic, and an overall composition of that. So let's look at blood pressure. Sorry, that's the blood pressure I was talking about, the systolic, the diastolic, and the pulse. And for this person, that pulse value is really very low. Typically, you would think that they have a problem with their pulse because the pulse should not be falling below 55. Mine is around 59. So I don't know what yours is. Can I sneak?
Sure.
Yours is 50. Too low. Except you exercise a lot, your pulse should not be that low. So when you have that kind of low pulse, it's something that you need to really watch out, your overall arterial function, right? So we have the diastolic. What's the diastolic? The systolic is the one that pushes the blood out, right? The strength of the muscle pushing the blood out of the heart. And the systole is that resting stage when the blood comes back into the heart. So it's important that we understand those measures. That's why hypertension is typically that upper number going above 140. Why? Because there's arterial stiffness, so the heart has to exert more pressure to push the blood out. That's what high blood pressure is, right? So that measure typically would go up, and the diastolic one typically will also go up. So typically people would then be ranging, I have that, I think mine is around 140, 145, but I'm taking things to deal with it. But my diastolic is around 90. So it's a very, very important measure when you look at arterial stiffness, performance, recovery, and blood pressure. All of these things are really tied to the overall architecture of how nutrients are distributed to the body equitably, right? So that the whole body performs, which is really at the core of health and performance and vitality. So let's go to the big issue of microcirculation. Most people have problems with microcirculation. It's just part of aging, part of the stiffness of the our arterial architecture of blood circulation, and so we get those measures. The fluid balance, that's what Kim was talking about before. It's a very important measure, because the key is not just drinking enough water. The key is that the water is actually getting into the cells. So the measure that we measure here, which is the measure of internal body water over overall water, that measure is very important that it's above 50. That means there should be more water in your cell than outside in your bloodstream. The whole concept of cellular turgidity, the water is required really for what we call the anion exchange of how things are carried from the bloodstream into the cell and out of the cell. So it's a very, very important measure. We talked about body composition. We looked at the visceral fat level. We look at the muscular mass, and then we have the vertebrate score. So for us, this is a very expensive machine we invested in, because as our patients come in for regular visits, it's very important that we get a real sense overall how they're doing, what kind of progress they're making. For patients who've been working with us, you know that we do a full extensive diagnostics. The philosophy of this clinic is based on clinical biomarkers. We don't depend on how patients feel. We actually are not interested in imaging, because imaging just gives you a sense of where things are. We believe that imaging is invasive and actually causes more problems, because whether you're doing a scan or you're doing x-rays or doing MRI, as we know in physics, there's a concept of perturbation. You are actually disturbing and causing more problems in trying to measure. Are we making sense? That's why I don't also encourage colonoscopy, because the incidence of puncture of the colon during that exam is really very high, and the value is not really significant. We prefer that there are other things you do to achieve colon health than to put yourself under colonoscopy. Okay, there are very few good doctors who can do it without injuring the colon, and we know that that's a very challenging issue, right? Okay, any questions? We can look at some of the detailed scores. Scroll. Scroll. So you see the summary there, it begins to give you. So now let's look at what would be a body composition image. Keep scrolling. So let's look at, so it gives that picture. Obviously it's a man, right? No, don't go too far. Go back. So you see, hold on. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's fine. I want to see those measures down there. So you see across the different things it's measuring, it will give you the color codes of what is good and what is worrisome and what is bad, right? So it looks like the body fat mass, right? It gives you a range. That's at 13%, right? Then it gives you the fat-free mass. That is really in the bad range. Then it gives you a body cell mass. You know, the interesting thing, I was talking to somebody about this last night, that God, in creating the architecture, it's all about balance. Everything has to be within a range. The mathematics of it is really inspiring, right? See, everything has to be in range. If it goes too low, it's not good. If it goes too high, it's not good. Everything has to be in range. And that's the real challenge about maintaining health. How do I keep all these numbers in range? That's why we focus on lifestyle. It is about finding ways for yourself, personalized, that would allow you to keep all of these things in range. So you see here, total body water, that person is taking too much water. There's too much water outside the cell and just enough inside. That's overhydration, right? So there's overhydration. You're drinking too much.
I thought you said there's no such thing as drinking too much.
Well, typically most people don't. Yes, it's rare to find somebody with overhydration. Typically most people don't. But that's a particular case. And you want to find out why they're not absorbing more of that water. Because if you notice, they're not yet at the upper range for the intercellular water. That may balance some things there. Then you look at the waist-hip ratio. That's our measure of obesity. Then you look at the basal metabolic rate. Right? So, you want me to sneak at yours? You sure? I'm not going to tell them what it is. I'll just look at it. Okay. So you can look at your measures and it will tell you the things that are going up, the things that are coming down, and then, so let's scroll to the other measure. Any questions so far? Okay, that's the big one, right? Microcirculation. Scroll. Stop. No, scroll a bit. Okay. So it's looking at your left foot, your right foot, and then the total feet, right? It's telling us that there's a warning sign here that there's not enough circulation. Warning. And it could just be part of overall arterial stiffness with aging. It's just a warning, right? If it starts falling into the yellow, right, then we know there's a big problem. But it is important that you begin to address issues like exercise, right? Getting things that are going to move and bring oxygen and blood to the extremities. So register him, get the consent, and then William, did you run the MenlaScan last time? All right, so we're doing a report review. They'll print your report and you will join us. All right, thanks, William. And then you look at the overall right hand, left hand, and total hands. And then you look at the overall systemic vascular resistance, the cardiac output, and overall stiffness index. Very, very important measures of overall circulatory architecture. You know that the most important organ in the body is the heart. Once it stops, that's it. It's over. Your brain could stop and we could keep your life pumping, right? But the heart and that overall, that's what circulates water, that's what circulates food, nutrients, everything that feeds the body. So this measurement of circulation is a big issue, especially if you receive chemotherapy or you had an injury or just part of aging. Typically, what are the first signs? your feet and hands are cold. That's a problem of microcirculation. There's tingling, there's numbness, there's cramps. Those are all big signs that there is a problem there. And typically, it could be associated with arterial stiffness, and there are some things that we are now looking at to try and fix that. Any comments there? Let's go further. So let's look at the vertebrate score, the scroll. So we look at the full vertebrae. This person has a very good one, right? We're looking at the cervical, right? Where the cervix is, down there. We're looking at the thoracic, then the lumbar and the sacral, right? So the different portions, scroll back down so we can look at the vertebrae again. So we're looking at those different regions, and you can see where the problems are. Scroll back down. Okay, so you see that in the cervical and in the thoracic area, there are problems. Typically, you have these issues with regard to the way, the posture and the way the person is sitting, if they spend a lot of time sitting, right? Most people, they slouch, they don't sit up straight, and they don't walk straight, right? In the military, that's one of the first things that they teach you. Put your head up. Because most people walk with their head down, hanging, right? Which is a problem. So in the military, that's why you look face up and you're always standing straight properly, right? It's a big teaching. Actually, the first 2 weeks in the military, that's the big training. To stand properly, because most people don't know how to stand. They stand like that. That's how you stand, properly, straight up. Okay, let's go forward. So let's look at the cardio score. This person has excellent cardio architecture. Ooh, look at that. I think this person is a young person. Yeah, the vascular age is 37. I don't know the real age. But look at that. So what is the endothelial? Endothelial. Soul is looking. So what is endothelial? Endothelial is actually the muscle structure that lines the heart, right? So because that's where the compression comes from. So if that endothelial structure, right, is not in the right place, then we'll have issues of stiffness, of how it reflects, and what they call the augmentation index or the pre-ejection time and things like that. So these are very deep measures that the machine is giving us. So it gives us a very good heart rate here. William can sit back there. Oh, over there. William?
But he's got to run the scan on you.
Again? We didn't run it last time? Oh, okay, that's fine. All right, go ahead. Are you okay?
Yeah.
This is the big one, stress, right? Okay, we're going to take it slow here because Kim loves this subject. So Kim, how many areas of stress do we have? Kim, we have 4 areas of stress.
Perceived stress.
Okay, there's perceived stress.
Chronic.
No.
Inflammation.
Inflammation.
Yes.
Okay, hold on, Kim. Where does the stress from inflammation come from? Correct. Comes from the gut. And most people don't know about that stress. Why? Too busy pouring shit down. Right? And what causes that stress in the gut? That inflammatory stress. What causes it? That's an outcome of it, but what really causes it? Lifestyle, the food you eat, and yes, and the fact that, right, we don't have enough enzymes to digest, so we have lumps of food, we have leaky gut, we don't have enough probiotics for digestion. And that's why most people have stomach problems. And they think, well, yeah, my stomach is normally like that, but that causes a lot of stress. What are the other two sources to stress?
Sleeping.
Yes, the circadian stress. So if you don't sleep enough, you're accumulating stress. And what else?
Exercise?
No. The glycemic.
Sugar, yeah.
When you have too much sugar in your bloodstream, it causes stress on the overall system. That's why insulin is overproduced, and then the pancreatic islets are destroyed in trying to manage this high volume of sugar in the bloodstream. That's why sugar is worse than cocaine, because it really is destructive to the body's architecture. Most of us, if you grew up in the days I grew up in the village, there was no sugar. Sugar is destroying most of our health because of this underlying stress. And that's why most of us are diabetic or pre-diabetic because of that overwhelming. And by the time you're pre-diabetic, as I say, almost 40 to 50% of your pancreatic architecture is destroyed, it's injured. And that's a big problem. And so you just get off sugar. That's why everybody's talking about ketogenic diets. You just get off carbohydrates. That's the only way you can slow down or stop the decay that comes from sugar. Just stopping carbohydrates completely. That's the only solution. That's why there's a huge movement around Alzheimer's reversal, Parkinson's reversal, diabetes reversal, by getting on the ketogenic diet. That is the real research that is pushing that agenda. That if there is no sugar or carbohydrates being put in, then the body turns its overall energy architecture away from glycolysis and starts metabolizing fat as its energy source. Okay, it's a very important issue. So these four things cause stress. And stress is one of the big measurements that we look at here. How are you guys doing overall on your stress scores?
Sucks.
Oh, really? Good.
Very stress is good. Yeah. Wow.
So how was yours?
Moderate.
Moderate, not bad. How was yours? Moderate. Okay, that's not bad. So it is a big issue. And so perceived stress is the one that is really difficult. You can manage all of these ones. We have different things to deal with that. But that's the one you have to deal with. There are diets to deal with glycemic stress. There are ways to repair your gut and deal with inflammatory stress. Sleep is the big one. A lot of people think they can sleep just a couple of hours. There's a reason why God made night to be from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Right? It wasn't stupid. Then we discovered electricity and we thought we can, and then we discovered iPhones and laptops and iPads, and we think we can sleep less, right? But you know, in the village, people go to bed at 7 and wake up at 5. That's the way we're supposed to sleep. And the body requires that time to clean up, to repair, and to reset. It's very, very important. It needs that amount of time. You cannot shorten it. And if you're using Ambien, the body is not doing the things it's supposed to do. It requires natural sleep. Okay? So stress is one of the big areas, as we know that chronic stress and chronic inflammation are big triggers for chronic illness, right? So let's go further. So those are questions.
Fatigue.
Yeah, okay. Well, because, yeah, go ahead. Can you pull it back down? Let's look at fatigue. May I borrow your report again? So let's talk about fatigue. I didn't cover that. So, you know there is the parasympathetic and the asympathetic system that really manages the overall body. So the issue of the amount of that activity is tied to stress. You know, some of us are asleep and we're still stressed, right? Because we do not manage those systems very well. We don't know how to really bring ourselves down, right? That's why we engage in acupuncture, in yoga, you know, things that can really bring the body down so that that residual stress architecture does not continue running, right? Because some people feel, they think they're resting, but they wake up, they're still stressed. Because there's a very interesting thing about the way the body manages stress. It wants you to put it down somewhere. It wants you to put the load. If you don't put the load somewhere, the brain is going to hold the load. And that's why I encourage people to make notes, right? If you wake up at night and you're worried about something, make notes about it. So the brain would recognize that you are letting that stuff go. You don't need to remember it, right? That's why you need to put your keys in the same place and your glasses in the same place, so you're not always looking for your keys and your glasses, right? Your brain is wasted looking for silly things when you could make it easy for your brain, right, Nick, Rick? And put it in the same place, right? So you are not really chasing yourself every day and stressing yourself over shit that should not be stressed, right? And then there's the issue of fatigue. One of our patients came in this morning and said he couldn't come yesterday because he was so tired and he slept for like 14 hours. Sometimes we need to do that to really get our systems back to normal, right? Okay, I wasn't going to go too deep into fatigue, but fatigue and recovery are really very important indicators. In your report, you're going to see that at the biomarker level, there's a lot of recommendations. We map those recommendations to lifestyle advice that we provide, but you have to pay to get that advice. Okay? So we give it to you for free. You have to interpret it yourself. But if you need help with that interpretation, then we'll charge you $50 for that. Any comments, questions before I go to the next section? Per, how's this going for you?
Good.
Thank you, Per. So, you love your report? So, why don't you love your report? It's your report. You don't like the score?
Oh, I like it.
Oh, good. All right. We have no choice in life. We have to like what we have. That's the only thing we have. Accepting what you have is where it is, right? How are you? I didn't catch your name. I forgot.
Nellie Harris.
Nellie. How is it going for you?
It's fine.
Thank you.
Absorbed quickly, so.
All right, great. Simone.
I love my report.
Well, good. And Rick. Wonderful. And I can't catch the name. Nara. Naga, your first time here. How is your report looking? You're young and restless.
Much information.
It's all information about you.
Yeah.
It can't be too much information. It's about you. Do you know God created a very complex architecture? Our job here is that we want to make you to take ownership of it. It's yours, not your doctor. You know, many people walk in here and say, my doctor said, and I'm like, really? When you die, is he going to pay us for making mistakes? So it is your health, and it is important that you understand it and you take ownership of it, right? Most doctors don't have enough time and are not paid enough to worry about your personal health. You understand that? It's a very important message that we communicate to our patients. Somebody called me yesterday and was screaming at me that they went to the emergency and they waited for 12 hours. And I'm like, I don't work at the emergency. Why are you screaming at me? I don't work in that system, right? And if they give your wife who has Crohn's illness medication and the medication is causing numbness, why are you telling me that? As I say in Facebook, it is our responsibility if we take medication. Nobody forces you to take medication. You either take it or you don't. And if you take it, there are consequences to take medication. And that's the price you pay. And a lot of people want a free ride. There is no free lunch, right? If you take medication, there are consequences to taking it. And if you didn't understand it, whose problem is that? It's not the pharmaceutical company's fault, because on all their drugs and their website, they list out all the side effects, right? And that's what I educated him. That when you were giving the medication, did you read about it? Oh, but the doctor, well, the doctor gave you the prescription. You're supposed to educate yourself on it. And if it is, you see that there are side effects that you cannot cope with, then you need to ask the big question, which brings patients to this clinic: what is my alternative? And then we'll show you what the lifestyle alternatives are to Crohn's disease, right? And that's what I told him. I said, if you, whenever you're interested in pursuing that journey, you can come see us. If not, you can keep going see your doctor and collect your prescriptions. How's it going for you, Enda?
Excellent.
You like it?
Yes.
Your report, or just the lecture, or me, or what?
The lecture is excellent.
What about your report?
Yeah, I like it.
Good.
It's moderate.
Kim, did I ask you?
It is what it is.
You mean your report is what it is? Yes, it is what it is. Jad, you didn't do it? Oh yeah, we cannot do it. Okay, for everybody who has met. Okay, let's now talk about lifestyle. So it's question time, and we're going to have this conversation as a team, right? And we should have some prizes here. Vincent, do we have some prizes? What are the causes of chronic illness? We should have presents for people who get the answers right. None of my staff should speak.
Toxicity.
Oh, Saul scored. Toxicity.
What was that?
Nutrition.
Toxicity.
Inflammation.
Huh?
Inflammation.
No, that's not a cause. It's something else that causes inflammation. What is it?
Infection.
Yes, infections. So let's just hold on. Let's just slow down on infections. That's why we're talking about the gut earlier. It is the largest source of infections. Why is it the largest source of infections? And then
It's connected to
well, because everything from outside, that's where it's coming in. We go to restaurants and we eat. Do you know how much bacteria is in that bullshit? Do you even know how it was prepared? Right? So there's a lot of pathogens that are coming from the water, from the air, and from the food. And so most of the infections, and that's why the gut has the biggest inflammatory challenge. Right? Okay. Number 3.
Nutrition.
Yes, what would call nutrients. And nutrients are of two types. What are they?
Macro, macro.
All right, macro and micro. And in America, we call this the SAD, right? The standard American diet, which is bullshit, right? That's why they're all sick. Do you know that the average weight of women in America is 160 pounds?
Yeah, it went up. It used to be 140.
And Rick said he thinks it's 300. Rick, that was mean.
That's not nice.
Yeah, Nick, that's my Facebook page,
I
Nick.
did not say I thought the average was 300. I said I thought the 160 was kind of low because I see a lot of 300.
Rick, I thought that was really mean. Some of my friends called me and said they want to know who Rick is. I'm joking. All right, so number 4 is what?
Just go to the buffet.
City injection.
Not sleep, no. But something around sleep. What's that? Stress.
Stress.
Number 5 is what?
Sugar.
No. Sugar is not bad in itself. It's just that we take too much of it. So our genetics,
Oh, yeah, that's
and what else?
How about ignoring the problem for long?
No. So number 6 is age, and then the last one is something very interesting.
Was that the relationship thing again?
No, that's on lifestyle. It's the something that Endang was suffering from. It's allergens, allergies.
Allergy.
Yes. So what are allergies? Rick?
Allergic to.
I know so you may be allergic to people.
Yeah, that's something you're allergic. Your body.
It's an inflammatory response to what?
Something you don't like.
No. My God, that sounds so American. Like something that your body doesn't agree with, right? That your immune system thinks is alien. So they attack it, right? Why is that response higher in some people than other people?
Because of the immune system.
No, we all have immune system. Why is the inflammatory response to allergies higher for some people than for some other people?
Because everyone is different.
No, that's not why.
Compromised immune system.
Correct. So if your immune system is compromised, then the immune system is more reactive to simple things that it shouldn't be. It cannot discern the level of acute and chronic response, right? Now we're going to talk about what's acute response and what is chronic response for your immune system. What is acute and what is chronic?
It's not repeated.
Acute is just in the short time and react right away.
Yes.
And-
Is acute good?
No.
No, it is good.
It's good because
It's our normal defense
it's not
system.
repeated again.
Yeah. Why is chronic bad?
It's repetitive.
It's like living. Living is long term, but it's not bad. I don't agree that it's because it's long term.
Chronic, it's repetitive. It keeps happening over and
No,
over.
that's not the problem. Why it is bad? If not, your stomach would just.
It doesn't have a chance to repair.
No, because there's no modulation. It never comes down. Because when you look at typical, if you look at typical inflammation, it goes up, it comes down.
Yeah.
Chronic inflammation,
Go up and stay.
that's the reason why it is bad. Inflammation in itself is not bad. It's a good response system for us. It's innate. And we build adaptive responses. But chronic inflammation, there's no modulation. It stays chronic. And that's what causes, is at the key of chronic illness. Right? Good. All right. So we got the causes of chronic illness. How many people knew that? All these things. Is there somebody here who is not impacted by anything here? Right? How do you know the amount of toxicity you've received today?
Take a test.
Yeah, you do a hair test or urine test with me, right? With doctor's data. How do you know the amount of infections you've encountered today? What about the nutrients?
That you should know.
How do you know that?
Because the amount of supplement I'm taking, so I know how much nutrients.
Okay, good. She's taking the RDA plus the other things we're going to talk about, and then perhaps some of the macronutrients. What about stress? So when we are going to talk about lifestyle, you begin to look at these things. Life is actually serious, and what are most of us doing? We're actually focused on money. Most people are not managing these things. And so we are making money to do what? Rick, what are we making money to do? To go play, but the body that's going to play is being destroyed in the process. Isn't that the stupidity of Western life? Right? We're making money to do what? To spend what? To repair these things? So there is this stupidity in Western life where, like somebody says, what did Dimitri say? We spend our youth making money at the price of our health, and then we spend the rest of our life paying to be healthy. It's a kind of stupid game. It's like a chicken chasing its tail. right? And so that's why for us, lifestyle is a very, very important conversation to have. We need to understand this thing. So when I spoke about toxicity, right, it comes from 4 or 5 places: air, water, food, and people. But there is a big one that many people don't think about: the cosmetics and the beauty products, the soaps, the shower gels, the conditioners, the perfumes, right? A lot of people, lipstick. How many times do you lick your lips a day? They say more than 4,000 times.
Depends on what's cooking.
Right? And how many of you know the quality of your lipstick? You see the point? Most women buy lipstick, they don't know the toxicity in the lipstick. Right? And you know, they keep right? And all of that is going down every day. So that's the challenge of modern life, is that. And how many people here detox every day? Right? So if you're taking all that toxicity and you're not detoxing, so what's happening to the toxic? And what is toxicity? Before I go to other thing, what is toxicity? Do you know what it is? No.
It's metal, it's mercury.
No, I didn't ask you.
Taking too much of something that affects your health.
Wow. There's a lot of things like that. There are a lot of toxic things we take too much of that are not really bad. With the things we take too much of that are not really toxic. Like water, you can take a lot of it, it's not toxic. Or like mangoes, right? So when we talk about toxicity, we really stay in a certain area. We look at molds, biofilm, and heavy metals. Heavy metals especially, it's the big one. Why are heavy metals the big issue on toxicity? Come on guys, give me feedback.
Body can't eliminate it. Body can't eliminate it.
No, that's not the reason why.
That's the brain. It's radiation.
Because of the half-life. They have radioactive, and what does that radioactive thing do? I need for we to understand this stuff, but guys, it's simple. Why is that radioactivity bad for your health?
It's causing chaos in your
I know it's chaos, but what is it?
mutations.
Yes, it causes mutations. So when it accumulates, the radioactivity causes the underlying mutation.
It's Chernobyl in the body.
Yes. Do you guys get that? It's very, very important. So when a lot of people, when we measure here, they say they eat vegetables. Then we look at the level of cesium in their urine, the level of mercury, of thallium. These are all heavy radioactive metals. That comes from fracking and from industrial waste, dust. Right? I'm not trying to scare you here. I just want you to have information so that when we're talking about detox, you have context as to why it's an important issue for you to look at. The stuff we talk about here, hospitals don't deal with. That's not their job. Hospitals deal with you only when you're sick. We are trying to keep you well. So when I looked at the statistics in Vietnam, it was shocking. They're going to build 100 hospitals in the next 10 years. They're going to open 500 dialysis centers. I'm like, shit. They're preparing for a handicapped culture, right? Same thing in America. They're getting ready for all of us to be in dialysis centers. Why? Because on average, most Americans are diabetic. And that means that in 20 years, most of them will be on dialysis if they continue eating the way they eat, right? All right, so we talked about the causes. Now, let's look at the big imbalances that are caused before chronic illness shows up. We mentioned some of them. One of the big imbalances that begins is our stress response. So we have a lot of support solutions for stress. And those support solutions will work around the 4 areas of stress that we spoke already about. Sleep, inflammation, the glycemic, which is around your diet, and around your perceived stress. So let's just spend a few minutes on perceived stress. Why is perceived stress very difficult to manage? I've taught that here before. Rick?
Because you never know when that idiot's going to cut you off on the freeway.
No. Perceived stress is difficult because our appetite is larger than our performance. We want more than we can deliver. Too much appetite. All those people walking around South Coast Plaza looking at shit they can't afford. It's stressful. Stressful. You should only look at shit you can afford. Or just go work harder so that you can afford.
Money so you can afford it.
Yeah, and those people who can afford it are not really at South Coast Plaza. They have buyers who go and bring it to their house. They get the point. So don't go stress yourself on shit. It's like people test driving Ferraris when you can't afford it. Now it is implanted in your brain the pleasure of a Ferrari, and yet you can't afford it. Now you're stressed. Then you start having nightmares. Then you start thinking, how could I steal some money? How could I fraud some shit, right? Very, very stressful. So perceived stress is a very challenging issue. Right? So that's one of the big things that we address. We have a lot of supplements. There's one here that's really beautiful. I take that a lot. The curcumin, that's from, what's that Indian product that produces curcumin? Turmeric. Right? Turmeric is a very, 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 very important product. Right? Your grandmother makes turmeric rice. Right? It's part of Indian culture, isn't it? Okay, let's talk about immune support. Why do we all need immune support? Is he going to do his MenlaScan? All right. Immune support. Why do we all need immune support? So, why do you need immune support?
It's your wall and your barrier to avoid having more of those toxins infect your body. Your immune system is what controls all of those issues. If you have a low immunity, you're going to be susceptible to toxins.
That's true.
More stress.
It's always under attack.
That's, for me, the better response. And why is it always under attack, Rick?
Because of the environment we're in.
Okay, but there is a bigger issue around immune support, which is that you actually there are 2 things. There's something we call physiological resilience and metabolic reserve. I've talked about that here. So you want to make sure that you have enough support when those mutations accumulate, so they can fight the mutation, right? And that's why cancer shows up around the age of 40 or 50, because of the accumulation of these things and the distraction of our immune system. Mutated cells are available in young people, but their immune system is very strong, so it's killing those cells, and so cancer doesn't show up. But when we start getting to 40, 50, because of the accumulation of these things and the distraction of our immune system with inflammation and glycemic and all those other things, the immune system is distracted, so cancer shows up. You get that? So the immune system is a very important issue, but it's better you control the inflammation and the fat and the obesity first before you start worrying, because once you dampen the inflammation and change the diet, the immune system is gonna pick up, because the immune system is distracted by, as we know, 90%, 80 to 90% of the immune system is distracted by the gut, because that's where most of the infections are coming from. So if you clean up your diet and the sourcing, that frees up the immune system to focus on the other things that it has been distracted and leaving alone. Is that making sense, guys? It's very important that